I'm in the middle of, or we're in the pre-production of our first feature for the production company. So we're in a lot of places right now.
Oh no, it's cool. I mean, it happens. I mean, good thing it's still the pandemic. I'm at home all the time.
Yeah. I feel that. I think the best way to kind of start this is, do you want to kind of just introduce yourself and kind of how you're related to, what you do with your podcast and kind of all that kind of stuff?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Justin Joseph Hall. I'm the owner of Fourwind Films, and I also run the podcast Feature in a Short through my company Fourwind Films. And what we do on a normal episode, we've done a whole bunch of kind of different episodes during the pandemic. But
Mhm.
normal episodes is we invite an appointed contributor to come on to the show, and they choose two movies. One is a feature, one is a short, one is a film they worked on, and one is a film they did not work on. So we watch both of the films and we discuss and send it around our appointed contributor, have Q&A, and it's a very it's a fun event. We also serve food during the film. When you see food on screen, we bring it out, some homemade, usually homemade, and then so it's a fun event, and we record it and then put it into a podcast.
That's
It's pretty
awesome.
fun, and I get to hang out with my friends and stuff. So.
How'd the podcast first come about?
Well, I was finding myself actually it's kind of I mean it's kind of funny. I found myself living in New York. You go out to have drinks with people all the time after work or whatever, and I was trying to network and I was finding I was doing it too much, spending too much money going out, and I needed more content for marketing and stuff. So, and I like hosting, and I finally got a spot. I had to move. So I was like, I'm going to look for a spot where I can have people over.
Mhm.
And so instead of going out other places to bars and meeting people one on one, I would bring the people who I want to meet one on one onto the podcast, celebrate them, and have other people over as well. And it was, it probably costs about the same as going out to the bar, but I get to do the whole thing and record it. And I don't know, it's a lot more fun to I think to present an event rather than just hang out. I mean, it's fun to go to a bar and stuff too, but maybe I was drinking a little too much. Couple too many beers, too many times after work going out to have a beer. So, but yeah, just fun times. Trying to compile things together, and I always wanted to do a podcast, so that was how it started. Pretty casual, but well, how'd you start? What made you start this one?
Well, actually, originally this was my podcast was part of a documentary that I did. So
Oh,
when I was in college, like one of my final projects was, you could basically do whatever you want. It was for like this literature class, and most people like wrote like essays or stuff, and I was like, I definitely don't want to do that. So I pitched basically this documentary to my professor at the time, and it was based off of, because we'd read some like stuff by like Karl Marx or somebody like that. And what I pitched to him was basically, my family kind of comes from a more kind of impoverished background, but there's kind of like different levels in there. And so what I pitched to him was basically, I wanted to interview six people, and it was basically two people from each economic background. So I interviewed two people from
hmm,
a poor economic background, which were my parents. I interviewed people from kind of like, classic kind of middle class, and I
hmm,
interviewed two people from like kind of like upper class, wealth, maybe not like billionaires or anything, but certainly kind of
yeah, yeah,
upper class. And it kind of evolved from that into just me kind of trying to explore what I wanted to do after that, because I did like 10 episodes about that, and I really enjoyed it, and I was like, this is fun, but well, I'm interested in this kind of thing. What I'm most interested in movies, and that's kind of what I've always been interested in. But honestly, me and my wife, I'll watch a movie with her, and she refuses to talk about it. Like, she just wants to kind of watch a movie and just like that be the end of it. Like, that to her is like, that's what movies are to her. And to me, I'm like, I'll sit there for like 3 hours and I'll never shut up.
yeah.
And
I know
so,
what you mean. My fiance is also annoyed by me and my chatterboxing.
so I So I started doing it on the podcast, and I was like, "Oh, this is so much more fun." And I ended up bringing the co-founder of my production company and the best man at my wedding, who is the only person I've ever met who's seen more movies than me. I mean, this guy literally watches like a movie every single day. It's
Oh, I
insane.
watch a movie every day. There's a guy, I gotta tell you right off the bat, his name is Miles Emmanuel,
Uh-huh.
and he is like 20, 21 years old, and he's seen like, I don't know, like 10,000 movies or something like that. And I've seen like a lot, and I'm
Yeah.
like four, almost four, not even four. I mean, he watches like three or four a day, and he has a notebook that he hand writes it in. No, I don't know. Yeah, he was very interesting. I had no idea. My one of my friends who we had on the podcast, his name's J. Pietro. He does really cool New York awkward men shorts,
Uh-huh.
and so we brought him on. And then Miles came, and he's just a super film fan, so he'll go to any film event. And so he
Yeah.
came on over to feature in a short, and I met him. But he's just a young guy, and I can't believe how many movies he watches. I mean, I think I watch a lot, and I have some of these other friends that are like watching three a night. I'm like, I don't know. Pandemic, I might have came close, but
I was on something recently and I read this article that Bong Joon-ho wakes up at 5 o'clock every morning and watches a movie first thing in the morning,
wow,
which
that's
is yeah,
I do that when I can't sleep. I'll wake up and turn on the movie, like
mhm,
if I it's like a bad sleep night or something.
yeah.
But yeah, first thing in the morning, that's get it out of the way. Why not?
Yeah, it's something I used to do back like right after I first graduated high school because it was kind of like I saw watching because as a filmmaker, like that's kind of how I saw like the way some people like read textbooks or like that kind of thing. Like this was kind of my literature. This is like what I study.
Yeah, that's what I see it more as too, is because I used to read a ton,
Mhm.
and I'd still watch movies, but we didn't have access to movies like that. And I'm just like, they're different mediums, obviously, but you can consume more movies faster, so you get more stories, and it feels like you're accomplishing more, even though I love reading a book as well, and I still do, but I'm even slower because I'm just like, oh, I'll just watch a movie and get the whole story tonight.
I have the exact same problem. I used to be like super in I mean I still try to like read regularly, but it's just like if given the option, I get so involved in a movie. And I think like a book, you have to have so much dedication, right? Because that's like I mean, it's like weeks or like months of your life that you're spending on this. And a movie is just like, oh, it's a couple of hours and then it's over, which is just it's just a different experience.
Yeah, and I think I have a problem finishing books too because I speak like I'm not perfect in all of them, but I'm pretty good in a few of them. But I speak a few languages, about five I consider two, and so I read in the novels in those languages, and it takes me even longer. And then I'm always starting five or six books, and so, it takes me forever. Some books take me years. Like Portuguese is my worst of the
Huh.
ones that I speak, and it probably takes me 5 years to finish a book because I'm switching between the other ones. I
Yeah.
don't really, lean towards the language I speak the worst, but it upkeeps my language. But it's like I'm even slower, finishing books. So that's getting worse.
So what kind of got you into learning like different languages?
Well, actually, it was because they required it in college because I thought it was dumb. I was just in Minnesota, and I
Yeah.
don't think you can get further away from another language. I mean, we we don't have any diversity. I mean, we have diversity in Minnesota, but I mean, especially in the '90s, it's mostly everybody speaks English. And I
Mhm.
think, I mean, if you think about it, the closest place to Minnesota where more people might speak another language is probably Quebec, and
Yeah.
after that, it's Mexico. So that's a long ways. So, but then I got required. I finally took Spanish in high school. I didn't really like it. And then I switched to Italian in college, and I had some good teachers and stuff. And I was like, oh, it's cool. And I studied abroad. So after that, I thought it was cool. And then I took a film class, and then I watched Breathless. And they said, oh, one of my professors, he's a really funny guy. His name's Robert Silverman. He's like a film critic and everything, but he's very quirky. He said, "Oh, that joke didn't really translate. This actually means this." And I was like, "What? How can I watch these movies if I don't understand these jokes
Yeah.
or whatever?" So then I learned French, and I studied abroad, or no, I worked abroad as an au pair, and I learned French, and then some of the other ones came in. But somewhat to watch movies and somewhat to just because it was fun. it's fun learning another culture because you learn so much, you know?
That's incredible. I was always jealous because I had a friend back in film school who spoke Swedish, and so he'd watch like Igmar Bergman films and their like original how they were
Yeah.
like intended. I mean, I love Igmar Bergman, and he's certainly kind of one of the greats, especially just like visually too. But also, I mean, like you read his like scripts, and they're like reading like these incredible novels, and you know that there's something missing there. And I've always been jealous of that, but I've always been because I also took a foreign language in college, and I did not do well, and I was just I mean,
It's a lot of work.
yeah, yeah. I think I just I don't know. Maybe I've gone around like learning language the wrong way, but I can never get into it. Say you're clean slate. How would you go about like starting learning a new language?
There's a couple things I usually tell people. The first thing is, like, you do not want to the hardest thing is learning not to think in another language that's easier. So whatever that is. So the main thing is first you gotta learn I always learn the grammar first,
Mhm.
get those down because once you understand the grammar and the pronunciation, then it sort of goes into a different part of your mind and you can switch and then it's about memorizing enough so you force yourself to think in that language and you practice thinking and you cannot let yourself go back to an easier language. So immersion's a lot easier. But I used to like when I was learning French, I would never not listen to any music in with English lyrics while because I was living there, so it was easier. And then I would walk around and listen to, I only probably had like 5 albums or something, and I would listen to them on repeat or something, and then you get to know that, you look up the lyrics, and it's just, like, eliminating the language that you know, because that's how babies learn, When
Yeah,
babies are young, they're just trying to understand really badly, and they really want to just be able to communicate. It's
yeah,
harder for people who speak English because a lot of people speak English, so it's very easy to go back. But if you
yeah,
set rules for yourself to not be able to go to an easy spot, then it makes your mind work and you want to understand so badly. You get very tired, and then after if you really, really do an immersion, probably after a month, you can start speaking if you have a good background, or maybe 2 months, and then it's not so bad, but it's really about forcing yourself to be uncomfortable. That's what I think.
one thing that I'm really interested in, especially, I mean, you're from Minnesota, so you're from the Midwest too. I'm from Indianapolis, so I'm always interested in how kind of you get into the world of film. So how, like, when you were a kid, did you ever think you'd kind of be where you are now?
I didn't know it was quite possible because I knew it was far away. I mean, Hollywood, I didn't know anybody in it, and so I think the first time that I realized that I could do something was my dad worked at Sears in the sales department on the floor, and they did a movie because they had access to you know home videos,
Yeah.
whatever. But they did like I could tell they were acting, trying to explain what it's like to do their job. They got assigned, so they did something fun with their
Mhm.
people, and he showed it to me, and I was like, oh, my dad can make a movie. I can probably make a movie. And then it happened again. I moved a lot when I was younger, like every 3 years,
Mhm.
and went to this other school, and this other kid is like, "Yeah, my older brother makes movies and stuff, and come on over, we'll make a movie." And I was like, "Oh my god, that's what I've been waiting for." And so we went over and made one. And so between those 2 things, I think I knew it was possible. And then I just started doing whatever because we did have home video cameras. So then I was like, "Okay, I got it." But I still did, I'm like, I nothing looks professional. I would try to make, a homemade dolly with our morning cart that had, shoddy wheels and stuff on
Yeah.
cement. It was just, like, insanely bumpy and stuff, so I was like, I didn't know, and then somebody told me about my school didn't really have a great film program. It's one of the biggest in the country, University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. So they don't have much, but they have a great theater department and stuff. And then I was actually in an Italian class right after I went to Italy, and I was helping this guy because we sat next to each other, and he said that, "Oh, yeah, there's this course if you wanna get into filmmaking, you should just start with this course. These teachers are great." And then I did, and then I learned how to light. And as soon as I saw the dolly, like that we moved the dolly, I'm like that's all I wanted. It like was to learn how to do that. Look, that's cinematic. Look, we can have lighting. Like I can make anything now. So then I was like, okay, I can do this. And I was studying stats and film history. They didn't have a film program. And so after that, then I just like totally focused on that. And focus TV. I always loved editing. Like when I was making the home videos, I would like shoot so I could do whatever I wanted in post, whatever. I mean, that's a longer story, but yeah. And then from there, it was done. So it was kind of that little progress of seeing other people do it who was close to me, and then seeing the tool that I thought was cinematic, which was the dolly. So
Yeah. So after school, how'd you end up where you are now?
that was also a very long journey. So I started working in Minneapolis, and so somebody
Mhm.
said, go talk to people. So I did. I went out to everybody in town. I was like, hey, can I get a job? And everybody's like, no. And then but one guy was really nice. His name is Ace. And I went back to him. He barely remembered me. But when I started featuring a short, he's actually in one of the episodes if you want to go listen to him. His name is Ace from Channel Z. He just retired when I had him on the show, like about 2 years ago or something.
Mhm.
But he told me, hey, if you want to get into the industry, what you got to do is move to New York, move to LA, and if you don't like it, come back. That's what a lot of these people do who work here. That's what I did. I think he's from the South, so
Mhm.
I can't remember. I think he's from Oklahoma or something. But he told me that advice. I was like, okay, I'll do that. So then I kind of planned, and then I eventually got to go. I had a couple video jobs, and
Mhm.
then when I got to New York, I couldn't get a job, and then so I had already done volunteer jobs. And by the way, right now, just so everybody knows, I own my own company, which is Fourwind Films. We make a lot of short films. I'm making a feature documentary. We're working on a feature narrative, all this kind of stuff, everything that
Yeah.
I wanted to do. And I'm an editor on Axios on HBO, which I edited the pitch for. So that's the current show that I'm working on. So
Mhm.
that's the end point. But now going back, so when I got to New York, I didn't have any contacts. I knew about 3 people, and none of them were really in the film industry. So I had to redo. I didn't know this, but you had to. It's important to work for people that have connections or that make really good stuff, so you can be like, look, I was a part of this really good movie,
Mhm.
even if you had a small part. And so I got a job after applying. I probably applied for 1,000, I don't know, like 2,000, 1,000 gigs and jobs. And I didn't really get anything great, maybe a couple gigs, and then I finally got at MLB, and then I started applying for free stuff again, like me not getting paid. And I did an overnight AE gig, which they called an internship, but I was basically the AE on the project
Mhm.
that had no money. And then from that, I got called back to do an AE left, and a movie went to Sundance, and they're like, we got to finish this real quick. And I was like, okay. And I had just gotten another job, which was an equipment store. And I just got it that week, and they told me that. And as I was leaving my previous job, the guy, he's a great guy, Tony Gerber from Market Road Films. He's like, "Hey, Justin, we need you to come." And I was stunned because I was literally saying goodbye to my boss at this CD replication place that I've been working at for 3 years,
Yeah.
and going to this other job. And I was like, okay, let me think about it. And couldn't even comprehend what he was saying because he called me at such a weird time. Then I went there, and anyway, I took the job, but I had just started a full-time job that took up 9 hours of my day, and then they wanted me full-time at night to do Sundance. It was only for 2 or 3 weeks to do
Yeah.
this, to finish this movie called The Notorious Mr. Boot. So did the equipment job during the day, went to there at night, and I was 9 hours. They made me take an hour lunch, which was really painful during this time because I would have eaten lunch in 5 seconds in order to sleep more those 2 weeks.
Right.
But so I would do that, travel 45 minutes to the other job, and then I would take a car home because they're all in different parts of New York and Brooklyn,
Mhm.
well, between there and my house, and then I would sleep. And it got so bad at the end of the week. Of course, I had to go to the one job during rush hour, so I was there's no place to sit. I don't know if you've been to New York, but during
Yeah.
rush hour, you can't really sit. And I was so tired, I would be on the, 30-minute ride or 45-minute ride. I
Mhm.
would be falling asleep standing up, and I'd collapse, and then I'd wake up before I hit the ground, and then so it was a very exhausting week. But after I had that gig with MLB and with the Sundance gig, then about a year later, things started picking up, and I would start getting good jobs. And then
Yeah.
went to DCTV, which is where I eventually did Axios and a bunch of other shows, and I had started my company around that time. So I was doing that on the side, and working at DCTV and other freelance gigs and stuff, and sort of brought me here. So a bit of a long journey, but
Where do you think that sort of ambition comes from?
I think I've always been ambitious, but probably from my parents, I guess.
Mhm.
They work very hard. I mean, my mom's family grew up on a farm, and my grandpa worked 7 days a week on a dairy farm, a small dairy farm in Minnesota. And so she worked all the time, and she used to work. I mean, they didn't get their college degrees until she was 40, my dad was 30. So before that, my mom was working like a job or two or three, waitressing, and she was a radio host and a couple other things. And my dad was always working, whatever jobs that he could. And so I think that's probably why. And I think my dad and my mom ingrained, you need to work hard. You have to earn everything. If you work hard, it will come. And so, and they told, the same thing that I think people say wasn't good, but where, sorry, I'm trying to say this right, where they say, anything is possible, you can do anything. So I just figured, if you work at it long enough, you're just doing it. You just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's like a puzzle until you make it, I guess. That's why I still feel, because I'm still trying to make features, which I haven't done yet.
Mm.
I haven't directed features. I've worked on features, but still trying to figure more stuff out. But I think it's a combination of seeing, people work and them instilling a drive and saying, you have to continue to work and things will pay off. So,
How did your parents first react when you told them that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
well, I was pretty sly about it because I don't think that they're very supportive, so I don't think they would have had a thing. But I hated answering people's questions because there wasn't a film program at my school and stuff, and so I majored in statistics and studies in cinema and media culture, which that degree is a bullshit degree at the University of Minnesota, and I can't believe that people take that and use it for anything. I mean, the classes that I took for that degree were so stupid
Yeah.
and impractical. So I still did statistics, and I love statistics as well, which is helpful when you do documentaries and stuff to understand where numbers come from and stuff. Oh, I didn't tell them right away because I wasn't sure, but I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I have a job here." And they're like, "Oh, that's good." And job there, cuz with stats you kind of have to go to school again, and I didn't want to go to school anymore. So then I just started working, and I just made a living, and I never complained. My parents didn't have a lot of money either, so I never asked them for money. I never did anything, and I just made sure I was always working. And I just made it a thing, like I'm always going to work in the film industry. So I was always learning something, even if I wasn't getting paid very much. And I was pretty frugal.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I didn't really tell them. I just started working, and they're like, "Okay, well, you have a job." Was that an issue for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit it's complicated because when I was really young, I remember when I was 5 years old, my cousin got this, like, camera, and this was, like, right before digital camera, so they used, like, those, like, cassette tapes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
Uh,
yes, you're a little younger than me. Yes, that is what I that when I said I was making movies at home, we were doing that, and then we would to do post production. I would connect the video camera to come over with a cord, and then I would do a CD player. We'd
yeah.
pre-record the voiceovers and choose our soundtrack, and we'd hit next and be recording the audio. So then the whole we do a whole dub via CD because we knew how to burn a CD, and then to get to the next song or whatever, I just press next on the CD player and record it into the new tape. That's how we made our movies in high school, to get our A in history or whatever. So that's funny that you say that. Yeah, way back when there were tapes. Yes, I'm familiar.
So, she got this camera, and from, like, the first day she got the camera, she never used it, she, like, never touched the thing, and my mom at the time was a single mom, so we'd go over and her mom was a single mom, so we'd often spend pretty much all of our summers together because it was just easier if we were all in kind of one place, and
Mhm.
I would take this camera, and basically I'd make my 2 cousins just, like, act out, and at the time, like, I didn't really understand what a director was. I remember when I was in high school,
I
there
don't think anybody ever understands what a
I don't
director
think
is.
they do
Yeah.
either. I was, I was in I was in high school, and it was the first time that, like, I thought that, like, being a director was, like, a thing I might wanna do, and
Mhm.
my little sister, she's, like, 7 years old, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, I know what a director does. They're the guy who says action." It's like, "Yeah, I guess that is technically part of their job." And so as a kid, I'd make these, like, little short films with my 2 cousins, like, just forcing them to just do these, like, just crazy different things. But I never thought of it as, like, I didn't think that was, like, a job. I didn't think that was a thing people do, because at the time, I'd never met a filmmaker
Mhm.
before. I mean, here in
Yeah.
Indiana, right, that's just it's not a thing you do. And so by high school, I was trying to convince myself, "Oh, maybe I wanna be, like, a lawyer or, like, a doctor, or I wanna do all these different things." And I kinda buried being a filmmaker away, because I was like, that's not a job. That's, like that's what I do on the side. That's what I do for fun, but it's not a job." And so after I graduated high school, I was trying to figure out, like, I don't know if, like, I don't know if I wanna go to college, I don't know if I wanna do this or that, and so I took a little bit of time. I was kinda taking a break from things, and I applied to a couple of different universities, and I ended up getting into NYU, which to me was, like, the one school I never thought I'd get into. Like, I applied to, like, all these different universities, and I somehow, like, fumbled my way. I don't know if it was because, like, I don't know. I definitely lucked my way in here. I think they just, like they forgot to, like, they put me on the wrong list or something. And I walk into school, like, the first week. I've never been to New York City before. I'm living, like, in a dorm room.
Oh, you didn't visit before?
No, no, this was, like just, like,
You
flat
just
out,
like,
never been to New
oh
York
wow,
City.
that's a yeah, that's a jump. I mean, from
It
wherever to go to New York, it's not like any city I've ever been to, you know.
yeah, it's going from, like, a small town Midwest to, like, New York City. It was just, like, the most
How big is your small town, by the way?
I mean, now it's like a good, like, medium size. There's probably, like, 50,000 people, but, like, back when I was younger, it was, like, 10,000 people. It was a very like, everyone knew everyone
Oh
there.
wow, that boomed, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 'cause, I don't know why, suddenly it's like a big place for people. I think it's something to do with, like, sports or something. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I don't know. So I go to New York, and I'm sitting in a chair across from my advisor. They say, you need to, like, declare, like, a major, or, like, what kind of, like, major you like thinking about doing. Because
Mhm.
I had taken some, like, classes in high school, so I was technically, like, I had enough credits for, like, my base, so I had to declare a major, and I was like, I don't know, like, I just kept talking to them, and they're, like, writing all these notes down. I was like, I have no idea. And they're like, "Oh, you should be a film major." And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah. Just be a film major." And I was like, I didn't know that was the thing you could do." They're like,
Oh,
"Yeah, yeah."
at NYU? Yeah, oh man.
Yeah, they're just like, "Yeah. This school Tish, it's a pretty okay school."
It's alright. Yeah.
It was the most incredible like, I'd never, like, thought, because I remember in high school, like, those days where, like, you'd come into class and you'd be watching a movie that day, and you'd be like, "Ah, right, great day of class." That's like
That's
every
right.
day. It's like every day
Yeah.
at film school.
Yeah, that was with like that teacher that I said,
Yeah.
Robert Silverman. I took
Mhm,
that class in college because I was like, well, I'm just gonna take in the 5 areas that I didn't know my major either. So I
mhm.
went and took that film history class, and that's where you see Dr. Caligari and you know um, I don't know, all the silent films that I never knew about. I saw Breathless
Yeah.
and Bicycle Thieves and whatever. But yeah, it's crazy, and then you write about them. I don't know. It's just so interesting going into film. I mean, it's art history
Mhm.
basically,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize that until later, and it's such a huge foundation for when you go into filmmaking
Mhm.
that I'm surprised more people don't watch older movies constantly because I love all of film history. I have a lot of friends who watch a lot of stuff from once they were
Mhm.
born into today, they're during their lifetime,
Mhm.
but I definitely watch like everywhere in the world all the way back, and that's from film history class.
Yeah.
That's what sparked all of that interest. I just think you learn so much on different filmmaking styles.
It absolutely, it baffles me, because I have some friends who are like, "Oh, I won't watch a movie if it's in black and white," or, "I won't watch a movie if it's, like, before, like,
Yeah.
1970." It's like, you're missing out of, like, like most movies, right? Where before like you're
Yeah.
missing out on just like so much.
Well, and Casablanca and, like, classics, it's like, well, you can't a black and white movie, you're never gonna watch Schindler's List? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
Like, what, you
I'm
gonna skip through half of Memento or what, you know? It'll be really confusing, let me tell you.
yeah, I
Oh, I
just
was gonna ask you sorry, one other thing too,
Mhm,
like, who did you show those videos to when you were younger? Like, because you didn't make them for, like, school or anything, right? You were just making them for fun?
I would my poor parents. Um, every Friday night, I would force them
Every Friday?
every Friday night because we'd
Oh,
do
wow.
them, like, during the week, and then every Friday night because 'cause they'd always have, like they'd all have a get together, like, the whole family would come together, and there's I don't know, it's not, like, a huge family, but there's probably, like, 15, 20 people, and, we'd plug it into, like, the little VCR DVD player, and we'd charge them money, they'd all have to pay me a like, me and my
See, you're smart. See, I still gotta learn that. That's important, kids. Come on.
so they'd all pay us $1 for this movie they
Pay
did not
attention,
wanna
Austin.
see. And then I'd force them to sit down for, like, 10 to my poor parents, for, like, 10 to 20 minutes and just watch just this absurd, like, nonsensical film with, like, no have no, like, plot or, like, real editing skills. I didn't know what was going on, and they'd sit it every week, and they just go, that's it's a great job." And I kept doing it.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And I think that's such a smart thing is to like learn how to charge once you finish it. I think that's good that you did that early. Like even if it's $1 or even if you charge a penny, it's just like getting into a habit of charging something because you're providing entertainment, just like going to the theater, or just like or not going to the theater. I meant watching a play. That's the theater, but
Right.
I think that's so smart to do and to practice. It sounds silly to practice, but yeah, you just forever try to get people to watch your stuff, but it's a way to show that you have value, which I think is great that you did that. It's really cool.
When I first this was only a couple months ago, when I first started the production company, because I'm still baffled by, like, money. Like, money just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And I would sit with my production partner, and I'd be like, how the hell do we, like, charge people for, like, what we do? Like, I don't know the economics of it at all, and we would sit and go back and forth, and I remember I went into this meeting with this client, and like, pitched me, like, what he wanted to do, like, some commercial for something, and I was like, "Oh, yeah," and we started, like, working on it, and we're getting we're doing our stuff, we're doing our thing, and being way perhaps, trustful, I hadn't, like, asked about payment or anything. Like, I told him how much it would, like, cost and all that, but I didn't ask for, like, any sort of payment. I was like, "Yeah, we'll go shoot it, we'll edit, we'll put it together, and then, like, once finished, you pay us." And, I'd spent probably I mean, the shoot itself was only like a day shoot, not that big of a deal, but I probably spent like 20 or 30 hours just like going through this footage and like cutting it and recutting it and like putting it together. And I finally deliver it to him, and he's like, "I don't like this." I was like, "What?"
Mm.
I didn't. Okay, what would you like me to do? He's like, "Oh, I just don't like it." And I was like, "Okay, well, like, I gave him the options, like, look, we can do this or we can do that." He's like, "No, I'm just not going to pay you." And then he just disappeared,
Wow.
which I mean,
That's a hard first lesson. I've had one person not person, one entity not pay me, and it was New York City that didn't pay me. So, and it wasn't even that big of a bill. It was like $200 or $300.
yeah.
And that's like, I know, but yeah, I feel like everybody learns that lesson.
Yeah, I feel like no matter how many times you, like, tell people like, it's one of those things where you just kind of have to go through the just crushing I don't even think it's, like, really about the money that much of the time, it's just, like, the crushing experience of just being
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's not fun. Yeah, and then you don't even get to show it. You do all that work and it doesn't go anywhere, and you're like, oh, yeah, I hear you.
like, what do you think are your early memories of, what do you think is the first movie you remember seeing?
Oh, the first one I remember. Well, I know I remember Jurassic Park as one of the strongest, but I know that's not. I probably, if I mentioned a different one, I'm sure there are other ones that I saw that were before then because I know, like, I probably saw Aladdin and stuff in the theaters earlier or something.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, my dad would like give me goals, and if I would hit them, like I can't remember, like if I got straight A's or if I got I can't remember what some of the things were. I know one thing was like if I beat him in ping pong, but that was like way later. stuff like that. He would give me they would either let us, buy a video game or go to the movie theater or some kind of reward like that. And so I remember that, and so it was always a treat, and we always watched movies at the end of the week,
Mhm.
you know? It was, like, something that I always wanted to do and do more of, and I always wanted to see more films, and for so long, I was limited to PG and G movies and stuff. So, you go to to not Blockbuster, but the local video store
Yeah.
and, see all the horror movies and then like, what is Hellraiser? Look at that one, or these Children in the Corn, which I still haven't watched, even though it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Um, and I would just like always want to watch more movies, and that continued, and now my list is 900 movies long, and we slowly try to whittle it down and add more than we watch, and
Yep.
so I don't know. I mean, Jurassic Park, I remember going to the theater, and my dad, the Velociraptor was like, I was totally thrilled and stunned by it and
Yeah.
scared and probably had a couple nightmares. And I remember we get done with the movie, and my dad, he looks at us, and I think we were physically shaking, but
Mhm.
we were excited. The end of the movie isn't that scary, but I
Mhm.
think we got up, and I probably had a lot of pop or something too. And
Mhm.
and my dad goes, "Are you shaking? Were you guys scared?" And me and my brother are like, "No." And then he started laughing. So I think it was pretty obvious. It freaked us out, but that was really fun.
It's funny because the first kind of, film that I kinda remember seeing or, like, first experience was also a Spielberg film. It was, E.T. I remember
Oh, okay.
it must have been it couldn't have been the original, really. It must have been, like, I think it was, like, some anniversary, and they were putting it in theaters again, and I remember just seeing that really weird looking alien guy.
That
I
movie
was
scared me.
Yes, me too, me too. I was absolutely
Yeah.
terrified.
With the creepy, like, pans across the room,
Yes. Oh
and
my
then
goodness.
and then you don't know what's going on at the end. I don't know. All of that, like, freaked me out.
Yeah, exactly, and I remember walking out of that movie and just being, like, absolutely terrified, which I know is, like, not, like, the original purpose of that movie, but I come out of the movie terrified, and I come and I think, "I didn't know movies could do this." Like, I always, like, just thought, like, movies were just, like, something that
Mm,
happened and then you leave and forget about it, and E.T. was, like, the first movie where I was like, I kept thinking about it, and I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it. I was like, "Oh, that's what I wanna do. I wanna I wanna make
yeah.
people, like, just, like, walk out of theater and they just can't kinda get it out of their head. I just love that.
Yeah, and I think that's what's cool, and that's what we're talking about too. But I think books and stories in general, they're like little pieces of information that are very complex. That's what art is explaining something that hopefully you're explaining something that you can't just put into where obviously books are just words, but it's something that adds up to a bigger whole, and that's what you hope for. At least something that's not escapism. You hope that it brings something additional to people's lives. And I think the biggest thing that you can learn from film is empathy, or in some way or another. And I think that's what's so cool about storytelling and story making, and because there's been storytelling in society as long as anybody knew how to communicate. You tell stories about your own life and other people's experiences and things that you imagine up, and I think it helps humans relate to each other so well. And so when you see an amazing piece, like ET that affected so many people and everybody relates to it, you're like, oh, it's a common experience. There's something in here that we all relate to, or many, many, many people relate to it. Honestly, ET is not like my favorite movie, but it's one of those movies where you're just like everybody relates to it somehow or another, and I think that's so important when you get those gems, like any kind of art in society. That's exactly what you said. Those are the kind of movies you want to make. That's what drew me to making films as well. It's just like that that power of like I said, empathy, or communal knowledge, that I think we as a society, we're on the earth, the humans are like a giant organism, and the more we all know, the better we're gonna function. I think that's cool that you said that.
I think that's a good place to kinda wrap up with things. I think that's a very, it's much more thoughtful than anything I would've come up.
Oh, this is fun. I like very much enjoyed it, and Yeah, and we'll have to get you on the feature and a short if you're ever in New York. Hit me up, and we'll make sure that we do something for that, and we'll give you a well, obviously, yeah, we'll be shouting you out on our next one, which is coming up early in June. We're having Vice News editor Ilaria Pulsanetti on our show, so yeah, listen up for that, I guess.
So what does the future look like for you? What's the next year or so look like?
Well, I'm working. I've been working on a documentary since I left college called Frames of Reference, where I went around the world. Well, there's two. I should say about two projects. Okay, they're both documentaries. These are just things I've been working on for a while. One is this documentary, Frames of Reference, where we went to 7 schools around the world, and it's about perspective using education as a center point. And so we went to 7 unique cultures and places and went into their educational system and talked to people in that educational system and got a picture of what education is to them. This is Burkina Faso, Japan, France, Colombia, Northern Cheyenne Indian Reservation, and Hayward, California. I think I hit all of them. So we're looking at education from all those perspectives. And it's going to be a fun movie. I'm going to have sort of a cowboy narrator through this whole thing, Southern narrator, and we're going to use a couple experimental techniques. So that movie is in post production. We've shot everything. We've been to all these schools and got access to, in Japan, it's very difficult to get access to school, especially, but went to, Burkina Faso in the middle of nowhere and cutting that hopefully will come out sometime next year. And then the other thing I'm working on is this series called Artist in the City. And we're doing a season on different artists. And so this is sort of our pilot season where the idea of the show is to show what it is working as an artist in a particular location. I have a relative here who is working as an illustrator and musician for decades in New York City. He's amazing. He's had multiple covers on the New Yorker, done 9 children's books as an illustrator. He's even written one. His name is Marcellus Hall. And he's also had success with like Matador Records, inspired the song Float On for Isaac Brock with one of his songs called Life is Still Sweet. And so we did a documentary series on him using all of his artwork we have an illustration from when he was 7 all the way until 2018. And we use his music throughout. Everything is told chronologically, visually with his illustrations, and orally through his interview, and his music goes in chronological order as we see this. It's split into 5 episodes and it's consumable YouTube length all are under 10 minutes. It's 32 minutes in total. And so that's called, the first season is Marcellus Hall, an artist in New York City. And that we're shopping around and trying to get out. And in addition to, I also have a screening next month for my short, which is a narrative short, Prologue. Sorry, I'm doing everything, but I do so many things. Sorry. Yeah, so those are the 3 things that I'm like really, really pushing right now. Those 3, my short Prologue, Marcellus Hall, an artist in New York City, documentary series, and Frames of Reference will be my first documentary feature.
Awesome. That's absolutely amazing. And it was a real joy to talk to a fellow cinephile because it's been a while.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to hear. And yeah, hit me up when you're in New York.
Absolutely. And if you're ever for some reason in the Indianapolis area, please hit me
You
up.
never know. They do have some good film festivals out there. So.
That's true. That's true.